Nothing is more offensive to us than the sight of human perfection. Friedrich Nietzsche.
Have you ever watched a room change when someone perfect walks in? Not loud, not arrogant, just composed. Their posture, their timing, the way their words seem to land exactly where they should. At first, everyone softens towards them. Heads tilt, smiles form, conversations bend around their gravity. But stay long enough, and you can feel the air thicken. The compliments start to sound rehearsed. The eyes that once admired begin to study, measure, resent. That shift, that quiet turn from fascination to irritation, is older than any throne. It's the moment perfection stops being beautiful and starts being unbearable. People don't talk about it because it's shameful to admit envy. Yet envy runs the world more reliably than love or reason. It's the silent engine behind revolutions, gossip, betrayal, even friendship. We envy those who seem untouched by the chaos that consumes us. We tell ourselves that if we were as calm, as talented, as lucky, life would be easier. But deep down, we don't really want to live beside perfection. We want to see it stumble. We need proof that the person we admire still bleeds like we do. Because if they don't, what does that make us? The danger of appearing too perfect is not that people will fail to notice you. It's that they will notice you too much and for too long. You become a mirror reflecting what they lack. Every victory of yours subtracts from their sense of worth. Every effortless gesture feels like a reminder of how clumsy they are. And when admiration starts hurting, it has to transform into something else. Usually, it becomes correction, then accusation, then hate disguised as justice. You might think, I'll just stay kind. I'll be humble, approachable. It helps, but not for long. Humility itself can start to look performative when it's spotless. People will suspect strategy in your kindness, calculation in your calm. They will search for evidence that you are not what you seem. And if they can't find any, they'll invent it. That's why the wise learn to release pressure early. A flaw offered voluntarily is safer than one discovered. A small confession, a visible imperfection, a self-deprecating laugh. These are not weaknesses, they're safety valves. They remind people that you are part of the same fragile species. They make room for empathy to return before envy hardens into contempt. Think of how you respond to others. When someone fails publicly, part of you relaxes, not out of cruelty, but relief. You whisper, they're human. That small mercy keeps societies from tearing themselves apart. But when someone never slips, when their face never cracks, we stop granting mercy. We start plotting balance. Perfection isolates. It builds invisible walls. You'll notice it in little things. Fewer honest conversations, more silence after your jokes, people agreeing too quickly. They aren't respecting you. They are protecting themselves. They fear that by standing too close, they'll expose their flaws. So they pull back and you stand there, polished and alone. Real power isn't about removing all cracks. It's about controlling which ones you let them see. Show enough to be human. Hide enough to stay formidable. Let your competence look earned, not fated. Let fatigue show on your face after triumph. Let people feel that you fight the same battles they do, only with slightly steadier hands. Because when you seem perfect, you stop inspiring and start provoking. When you seem human, you remain untouchable in a different way, not through fear, but through connection. Perfection is light, humanity is warmth. Without warmth, light burns. And in every age, the same story repeats. The admired become the accused, the flawless become the fallen. The halo shines, the crowd gathers, the dagger glints somewhere in the back row. Never appear too perfect. You'll win their eyes and lose their hearts. The story of Pericles begins with silence, the kind that follows brilliance. Athens had known warriors, tyrants, and poets, but never a man who combined them all so seamlessly. He was not loud, nor cruel, nor desperate to be loved. He was controlled, almost too controlled. His voice was calm, his words precise, his robe immaculate. He spoke, and the city listened. And that was his first victory. Not on a battlefield, but in the human mind. Under his rule, Athens transformed. He filled the city with marble, music, and light. The Parthenon rose under his vision like a promise that Greece would never kneel again. To the outside world, he seemed divine. To his people, he seemed perfect. His composure made others feel safe, but also small. His confidence silenced opposition before it began. And yet, behind that perfection, envy began to breathe. It started quietly, as envy always does. A joke about his helmet. They said he wore it to hide a deformed skull. A whisper about his mistress, Aspasia, who dared to speak like a man among men. They said she was the real power behind his words, that she corrupted him. And like all societies, Athens loved to worship its idols until it found a reason not to. Pericles never fought the rumors. He stood above them, serene, untouchable. That restraint once made him noble, but now it made him alien. People began to wonder what emotions lived behind that steady gaze. Did he ever feel anger, regret, or had he become something less than human, a marble figure giving orders? The truth is, the more perfect he appeared, the less his people believed he cared for them. His calm, once admired, turned into a wall they couldn't climb. They began to project cruelty into his silence. They wanted warmth and found discipline. They wanted flaws and found none. Then came the war, Sparta against Athens, a conflict born of pride. The city that had adored him now demanded a miracle. They had grown so used to his success that anything less than perfection felt like betrayal. But even Pericles could not control disease. The plague struck Athens without mercy. The narrow streets filled with the sound of coughing and the smell of death. Families collapsed inside their homes, and the people, desperate for someone to blame, looked toward the man who had once given them everything. How could a god not stop this? How could a flawless man allow imperfection to reach his city? The admiration that had built his throne now built his prison. Every strength was reinterpreted as arrogance, every delay as deceit. They accused him of overreaching, of bringing the plague by angering the gods. They mocked the temples he built, the speeches he gave, the beauty he once represented. He was no longer their pride. He was their scapegoat. That's the cruelty of human admiration. It isn't destroyed by failure. It's destroyed by expectation. When you've been perfect too long, anything less becomes unforgivable. Pericles died during that plague, quietly, with no audience, no applause. The man who once ruled Athens through reason and grace ended surrounded by suspicion and disease. After his death, the city tore itself apart. Democracy collapsed into chaos, the art into propaganda, and the greatness he built was consumed by the very envy that had followed him all his life. There is a particular tragedy in dying misunderstood. For all his wisdom, Pericles forgot the simplest truth about power. People will forgive your mistakes before they forgive your perfection. He gave Athens the image of a god, and they punished him for not being one. That is the essence of this law. Appear human even when you are not. Let them see your struggle, your hesitation, your imperfect edges, because the moment you look too complete, you stop belonging to them. And when you no longer belong, they will take you apart just to prove they can. Pericles believed he could rule through excellence. What he never realized is that excellence without warmth is a provocation. You cannot lead people while reminding them of how small they are. He mastered strategy, art, and politics, but he failed at appearing human. And that, in the end, is what killed him. She arrived in France as a teenager, a promise wrapped in silk. When the gates of Versailles opened for her, the crowd gasped, not because they feared her, but because they wanted to. She was light, laughter, youth, a foreign princess who smiled as if the world were harmless. For a while it was. The court adored her. Painters followed her, and every woman in Paris tried to copy the way she tied her ribbons. She was the perfect ornament for a tired monarchy, and that was precisely the problem. Versailles was a theatre, not a palace. Every gesture was watched, every expression translated into politics. Marie Antoinette learned quickly that in this world, appearance mattered more than truth, so she perfected hers. Her movements slowed to elegance, her smile froze to porcelain, her eyes learned never to betray boredom or fear. She became an idea rather than a person. At first, that idea worked. She was beauty in an age of dust. People projected their fantasies onto her. The romantic queen, the gracious muse, the symbol of refinement. But symbols don't age well. When food ran short, when taxes rose, when Paris grew restless, her image refused to adapt. While the country's stomachs emptied, her gowns grew wider, her hair taller. The public needed someone to hate, and the perfect figure at the center of luxury was an easy choice. The pamphlets began to circulate. They didn't attack her policies. She had none, but her perfection. They mocked her smile, her accent, her skin, her laughter. They drew her as a serpent in pearls, a puppet of greed, a witch behind powder. It was envy sharpened into morality. How dare she live untouched while we suffer? The same crowds that once cheered her carriage now spat at it. Inside Versailles, she felt it. Servants grew careful around her. Nobles who once sought her favor avoided her gaze, yet she doubled down. The more they hated, the more flawless she became. She believed dignity could silence contempt. It couldn't. Every bow she refused to break looked like pride. Every silence sounded like guilt. She wasn't cruel. She was detached. And detachment, in times of hunger, is a crime. When she walked among her gardens, smelling roses while France starved, she didn't mean to provoke. She meant to breathe. But perception doesn't forgive intentions. People don't see what you mean. They see what they need to. By the time the revolution came, she was no longer a woman, but a legend people wanted to destroy. The powdered hair, the diamonds, the posture. Each detail became evidence of evil. They dragged her from her palace to a filthy cell, yet she still stood straight. Witnesses later said it was that composure that enraged the guards the most. Even stripped of jewels, she looked unbroken. On the morning of her execution, she dressed with care. No makeup, no tears. When she climbed the wooden steps, she accidentally stepped on the executioner's foot and whispered, "Pardon me, sir. I did not mean to." It was her final act of perfection, and the crowd roared, not in admiration, but in triumph. That's how fragile perfection is. It can turn the smallest gesture into proof of arrogance. She had tried to embody grace, and in the end, grace became her crime. History remembers her for extravagance, but her real sin was poise. In a time when people wanted blood and chaos, she offered symmetry and calm. They didn't want a queen. They wanted a reflection of themselves, and when she failed to give it, they cut her down to size. Perfection is intoxicating until it becomes unbearable. It provokes hunger in others, the hunger to expose, to humble, to destroy. Marie Antoinette was never the monster they claimed. She was simply too polished to survive among the broken. If she had laughed at herself, cried in public, stumbled once, perhaps they would have forgiven her. But she remained composed to the end, and nothing enrages the suffering like someone who refuses to look wounded. The blade fell, the halo shattered, and France exhaled. For a moment, they believed equality had been restored. Yet all they really killed was the illusion of flawlessness. Michelangelo was born in the dust of stone. He didn't play with toys, he played with chisels. As a boy, he carved faces out of marble scraps left by older craftsmen. By his teens, he was already restless, not because he wanted to be great, but because he couldn't bear mediocrity. He saw shapes inside the stone that no one else could see, and once he saw them, he couldn't rest until he set them free. That was his curse. He lived in a world where art was faith, and faith was power. The church owned everything: land, souls, and the definition of beauty. Artists were servants, even when they changed the course of civilization. Michelangelo worked for popes the way soldiers worked for kings, under orders, under threat, under watch. He obeyed, but never submitted. When they asked him to paint the Sistine Chapel, he refused at first. "I am a sculptor," he said. "I do not paint." But he painted anyway. 4 years, alone on scaffolding, neck bent backward, paint dripping into his eyes. He painted heaven as if it were a burden. Angels looked heavy, God looked tired. That was Michelangelo's genius. He made divinity human. And yet, as the ceiling neared completion, admiration began to mutate. The other artists whispered. The cardinals frowned. The Pope himself started to fear him. His work was too perfect, too alive. It threatened the hierarchy. People began to call him proud, difficult, obsessed. They were right. He was all those things. But obsession is only condemned when it works. He rarely spoke, rarely smiled. He ate little, slept on the floor, carried guilt in his bones. He was haunted by the idea that his best creation was always the next one. Every success felt like failure waiting to happen. The more perfect his art became, the more he hated his own hands. He didn't trust praise. He saw it as poison, sweet at first, deadly later. And he was right. When the Pietà was unveiled, the crowd gasped. A young artist had carved the Virgin Mary and Christ so delicately that marble seemed to breathe. But when he heard rumors that people thought another sculptor had made it, he crept into the chapel at night and carved his name across Mary's sash. The only time he ever signed his work. Later, he regretted it. "I should not have done it," he said. "It was pride." That's the paradox of perfection. You spend your life chasing purity, but the chase stains you. The more flawless you become, the more people around you begin to whisper that you've lost your soul. Michelangelo never married, never settled. He loved deeply but secretly, unable to let vulnerability exist beside divinity. His letters to his few friends reveal a man terrified of affection. To be loved, he thought, was to be exposed. To be exposed was to break the illusion of perfection. And so he lived behind the same marble walls he carved. Toward the end of his life, when his body began to fail him, he tried to destroy his own sketches. He didn't want people to see the process, the mistakes, the revisions, the doubt. To him, imperfection was shame, but those fragments that survived, smudged with sweat and thumbprints, are what modern eyes love most. They show the human beneath the god. His patrons called him divine, and he despised the title. Only God is perfect, he said. I am not. But by then, it was too late. They had already built his prison out of admiration. That's the tragedy of being too good at what you do. People stop seeing you as a person. They stop forgiving you for existing. They no longer care about what it cost you. They only care that you keep doing it. Michelangelo spent his last years wandering the half-lit corridors of Rome, sketching buildings that would never be finished. His beard was white, his hands swollen, but he still drew as if chased by time. When he died, the Pope wept and called him a saint. But saints are the loneliest kind of people. He left behind perfection that will outlive empires. And yet, if you read his final notes, you'll find no joy, only exhaustion. The man who gave the world the face of God never found peace in his own. Because perfection doesn't free you, it cages you. And every artist, every leader, every dreamer who forgets that ends up carving their own bars. The older you get, the more you realize perfection is not protection, it's exposure. The world doesn't admire it for long. It studies it, measures it, waits for it to slip. And when it finally does, the applause is louder than the fall. That's why the wise keep a little shadow beside them. Not darkness, not deceit, just something human. A trace of roughness, an unpolished edge, a moment that says, I'm still one of you. Because people need that reminder. If you don't give it to them, they'll invent it for you, and their invention will be crueler than your truth. Look at the stories we've told ourselves through history. Pericles, the man too composed to love. Marie Antoinette, the queen too graceful to feel. Michelangelo, the genius too divine to rest. All of them consumed by the same force. Not hatred, not conspiracy, just the natural human instinct to break what seems untouchable. Power isn't just about dominance, it's about emotional temperature. If you burn too hot, you make people sweat. If you shine too brightly, you make them squint. Eventually, they'll close their eyes. The real masters of life understand this. They don't aim to be perfect. They aim to be approachable while extraordinary. That's the subtle line between being followed and being feared. The truth is, you can't survive long on worship. Worship isolates. It creates silence around you. You start to believe the flattery, start to walk slower, speak less, thinking that dignity equals distance. But the farther you rise from human reach, the thinner the air becomes. You start to suffocate on your own image. The strongest figures in history were never the flawless ones. They were the ones who knew when to trip on purpose. Think of Abraham Lincoln's awkward face, his melancholy, his plain speech. It disarmed people. Think of Elizabeth I calling herself a weak woman just before commanding an army. Think of leaders who laugh at themselves before others can. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. It drains envy before it hardens into action. Because envy doesn't disappear, it has to be managed. You manage it through honesty, humor, humility. A calculated vulnerability is worth more than any victory speech. Let them see your human cost, your fatigue, your hesitation. It turns suspicion into sympathy. People love competence, but they love effort even more. There's a reason comedians and kings share the same danger. Both stand in front of crowds that can turn on them in a heartbeat. The difference is that the comedian shows his sweat. He stumbles, he confesses, he lets the crowd laugh with him instead of at him. The king, if he forgets that lesson, will one day be the punchline. So when you find yourself becoming the best, when success surrounds you, when people start saying your name differently, pause. Don't hide your talent, but don't flaunt its ease either. Let them see the climb, not just the view. Let them feel that they could have done it too, if they'd worked just a little harder. That illusion keeps you safe. The goal isn't to appear flawless. The goal is to appear real enough that others don't need to destroy you to feel equal. It's self-preservation disguised as humility. It's the art of surviving praise. Think of your own life. Maybe there's someone who envies you quietly, your calm, your relationship, your success. They'll never say it, but you can sense it. You can soften it though. Let them see that you've struggled, that things weren't handed to you. Show the scar before they go looking for the wound. Power is a mirror. The more clearly people see themselves in you, the safer you are. So give them reflection, not intimidation. The shadow you reveal, the small flaw, the quiet doubt, the moment of exhaustion, won't make them think less of you. It'll make them believe they know you. And people rarely destroy what they feel they understand. That is the paradox of control. To remain above others, you must sometimes kneel beside them. Because perfection is not what protects you. The shadow does. Every person who chases greatness eventually reaches the same quiet place, the point where admiration starts to feel like isolation. At first, the attention feels like warmth, but slowly it turns cold. You start noticing how conversations bend around you, how people choose their words carefully, how laughter quiets when you walk in. It's not that they dislike you, it's that they've stopped seeing you as one of them. They see your name, not your face. They see the surface, not the struggle. And you, without realizing it, begin to live inside that reflection. That is the glass cage. It's invisible at first. It builds itself out of compliments, expectations, and distance. You start performing without meaning to, smiling when you're tired, pretending you're fine, staying silent when you should speak. You begin protecting your image instead of your soul. You begin living like a statue, admired, photographed, and completely alone. Pericles felt it as his city turned from worship to whisper. Marie Antoinette felt it as her grace became her sentence. Michelangelo felt it every night he carved the shape of heaven but could not touch it. The glass cage doesn't trap your body, it traps your truth. You start to believe that if you show too much humanity, people will leave. But the opposite is true. They leave when you stop being human. Perfection feels safe because it seems solid, but it's fragile. One crack, one rumor, one human moment taken out of context, and the illusion collapses. The same people who built your image will be the ones to tear it down, not because they hate you, but because they need to see what's real. And maybe that's the quiet mercy inside this cruel law. The fool shatters the glass, and for the first time, you breathe again. Look back through history. It's always the same pattern. The moment the perfect image breaks, we start to love the person again. When Lincoln's sadness showed, when Churchill's hand trembled, when a hero admitted doubt, that's when people finally believed in them. The flaw doesn't destroy your legacy, it completes it. The world doesn't need flawless figures. It needs reminders that excellence can exist without arrogance, that strength can coexist with empathy. When you show your limits, you give others permission to keep trying. The greatest danger is not failure. It's the illusion of being untouchable. Because untouchable people stop learning, stop listening, stop connecting. They begin talking to mirrors, not to men. And mirrors never disagree. If you ever find yourself admired too much, take a step back. Laugh at yourself. Tell a story about when you were lost, uncertain, wrong. It will not lower you. It will anchor you. Because power without warmth is just distance. The true masters of life do not hide their flaws. They use them. They turn their mistakes into lessons, their doubts into bridges. They understand that perfection is not the final form of power. It's the beginning of decay. So if you must choose to be real. Let them see the shadow. Let them see the cost. Let them see the tired hands behind the masterpiece. Because the moment you start pretending to be more than human, the world will begin to prepare your downfall. And it will come not from enemies, but from the very people who once called your name with love. Never appear too perfect. Perfection is glass. It lets people see you, but never touch you. And no one loves what they cannot touch. So step out of the glass. Let the air hit you. Let them see you breathe. They'll love you more for it. Like, subscribe, comment, or don't. You are the master of your own life.